really saved Porsche in the 90s. The 993, the black car, the 996, these cars, and the Boxster. These were the cars that saved the company. The 997 was, in the view of many, a return to form. It also generated one of the two best letters of the editor. You can ask me what the other best letter of the editor was later in the night. But I was working at Excellence, and I got a letter after we put the first 997 on the cover, and it said, they should have really named this the 995. Because after the 996, everyone loved the 993. There are dealers here tonight who know this story. People were crazy about the 993, but Porsche knew they had to move on. They had to do the platform sharing. And the 996 was an incredible product, fantastic to drive. If you're driving here on Lucas Valley, and I do encourage you to not drive too quickly on the way out of here, we want to all be able to come back. But if you're driving on Lucas Valley Road, I defy you to drive a stock 993 on a good road, and then drive a stock 996 on a good road, and come back and tell me the 993 drives better in terms of dynamics. Nostalgia, build quality, sure. Materials quality, sure. Porsche was on the ropes. They needed to make some decisions. Early cars didn't even have glove boxes. I mean, they really had to make some hard decisions to survive. The 997, they were doing well, and they heard the criticism. A lot of the customers didn't like that the 911 shared these same quote-unquote fried egg headlights with the Boxster. They didn't like this, that the front of the two cars was the same. So this car, they also didn't like what they considered were slab sides, and we don't have a regular Carrera here because we're focused on turbos. And it's interesting to me when I hear people say that the sides of a Carrera, 96 Carrera, are flat. Because if you look under them, they can get a 285 under those fenders. So they're actually quite Coke bottle, but they're subtle. With the 997, Porsche went back to the 993 styling cues very clearly. And so it's nice to see these cars in a similar shade. This is Atlas Gray. It's an exceptional example. This particular car is unusual in that it's Atlas on natural gray, which is almost black, which is a non-aniline leather. Sports seats, sports steering wheel, PCCB. This is really a special example, much like the 993. And you can see the cues. Porsche was returning to 993 cues. And then we'll quickly...
The only thing I would add about the 997 is this was the first variable turbo geometry, which was a fancy way of saying the turbo could be responsive at low RPM and powerful at high RPM. That was the theory, but these cars still have a lot of turbo, is the reality.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I drove the Wheelhouse Turbo, which I do encourage everybody to go find because there's a lot to explore. There's cars inside the building meant as Easter eggs. Those are worth finding. There's a game room, there's bars, there's things. I really encourage you to go find these things. But I drove the 930 up here this morning, and I love a 930. I love early cars. But driving it up Lucas Valley Road this morning, I thought, well, it was just by chance. I was just asked to get it here, and I thought, well, this is the perfect way to get to Turbo 50, because it's about as close to that 3 liter as you're going to get on a random chance. And as I drove up Lucas Valley Road, which is very close to my home, I thought, wow, the 911 Turbo's come a long way. That 930 handles fine if you know what you're doing with it. But boy, you wait a while for power if you're not thinking about it. If you ask for it, if you haven't gone into the corner really thinking about when that boost is going to come in, you got to wait. And this car, they changed the scrolls, the variable scrolls around the turbochargers, and we didn't really talk about that, but the 993 also introduced twin turbocharging. So from that black car forward, it's twin turbocharging for better response. We'll quickly go through the last few cars. 997.2 Turbo S. Also an important car. It'd be easy to say, oh, it's not that different. LED taillights are just the beginning. This is the first use of LED front lights, right? So the Carrera GT, as far as I know, is the first use of LED lighting on a Porsche. This was the first at the front. They added LEDs at the back on this car, but this introduced a new engine platform. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so the Metzger engine that had, kind of saved the turbo. had a lifespan, and it couldn't meet emission standards going forward forever. So Porsche had to kind of start from square one and develop a new turbocharged engine that they could use going forward. And the 997.2 turbo, this car introduced that engine. And that's really the big significant, well, there's actually one other really big significant change. Every turbo since the 996 have been offered with a traditional automatic transmission. With the .2, they went to a sequential transmission. And for a time, they offered the manual and the sequential at the same time, but the sequential proved so popular, the manual turbo eventually died, which takes us to the next car.
If you wanted an automatic transmission, that wasn't available to you with a 911 turbo until the 996, and it was a Mercedes gearbox. It was a Mercedes automatic. And one of my mentors, Bruce Anderson, liked to throw stones because it had 2 reverse gears. So clearly something out of Mercedes. This car is the beginning of PDK, which is a dual clutch, and it's actually fascinating. I won't go into too far into detail, other than if you ever get a chance, it's fun to look at the way that the shift pattern is worked out. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as you think. It's something akin to 6, 2, 5, maybe 3. Because this is stacked in such a way for it to shift super quickly. And this transmission out of the box PDK was fantastic. I prefer a manual on the street, but I'm done with those on a racetrack, the Autobahn or an autocross. Or there are many on our team who are done with them when they sit in traffic a lot. So this car is important both in terms of the beginning of something after Metzger and PDK, and the continued evolution of all of the finer things. The intelligence of the all-wheel drive system, the invisibleness of the Porsche stability management, active engine mounts, and PSM we didn't even discuss. Porsche stability management started with the 996. There's a whole other conversation there that the people involved in that have saved so many lives. And unlike many other manufacturers, if you're driving clean and neat, it just doesn't bother you. If I get into a BMW, I have to turn that stuff off, especially the older ones. You get into a 996, the only time it ever really bothers me is if you go over, you see the lump you're going to go over while you're cornering, and you know the car is going to shift a little bit. PSM, you go over it and they're like, wait, what's happening? Otherwise, it just doesn't bother you unless you want to be playful. So, and even then, as the system got smarter, it is watching what you're doing. It's almost a fuzzy logic. So we're going to switch to the next, and with this 991, something else important to think about. If you think about Ferrari, if you think about a lot of the great marques, in many cases what they do with each new generation, each new car, they crumple up whatever they did, throw it over their shoulder, and they're on to the next thing. Styling, concept, all these ideas. Every car here, flat 6. Every car here, turbocharged. But think about something else. There's only 3 platforms. If you look to the 993 all the way there, it's the same tub. Those windows are all interchangeable. The seals might be a little different, but you can take the windows out of that 993 and put them in a 64 and vice versa. Wild, right? You think about that. They won Le Mans with the black Interscope car. Not that particular car, but the K3, the Kramer K3, won overall. Same tub as those cars. A lot of people miss this. If you look at this 997, and then you look at the light silver, the polar silver 996, it's the same tub. Roofs are the same. All the way to here. So there's only 2 until you get here. Only 2 tubs from here. All those years. Next tub. So this is the 3rd tub. And we're still in it with 992. So this is a 991. Now you would say 0.1, but a 991 turbo. You start to think about that car introduced the new engine architecture, 981. This car, new chassis, but kept that engine. Typical Porsche. Evolutionary. The big change with this car is wheelbase stretch. Well, it's one of the big changes, of about 4 inches. People think, oh, those 991s are huge. They're not really. If you look at a Carrera S across the 2, it's about half an inch lower for the 991. It's an inch and a half longer and the same width. And I would imagine these are pretty close in terms of that. I haven't checked those measurements. The other wild thing is, how many know what a 914 is? Okay, are those big cars? Those are pretty small, right? Same wheelbase. So for everybody says, oh, those cars are so big. It's like, well, same wheelbase to the 10th of an inch. Now, of course, the overhangs are longer. Something else about 991, remarkably light. These cars in Carrera 2 format are about the same weight as a 964 Carrera 2 from the early 90s, which is a mind bender when you start to think that that 964 was on 16-inch 205 fronts, didn't have these huge brakes, didn't have the, nowhere near the size seemingly, and quite a bit more compact. I prefer that older package, but Porsche's discipline with regards to weight gain is really remarkable when you think about the 991. And so here you get to see both versions, 991.1, 991.2. I spent a lot of time in these cars, I spent a lot of time in those cars. I will tell a very fast story about this. We went to Thunder Hill, I think it was 108. I think the track temps were 120s, 130s, and we were hauling all day. And I had driven a Mercedes AMG years earlier up there, and when I left Thunder Hill after the day, I felt bad. I only did half a day because I felt like it was hard on the car. When I left, I felt like I had square tires. When I got on 5, the car just felt abused, and I don't like that. We spent all day, 4 hard sessions, just flying in these things, and we couldn't tell. Left the track after that kind of heat, and to tell you how hot it was and how hard we were pushing, on the last session, I go out and I'm in a convertible, and to give you an idea of the evolution of speed of these cars, I had tested there at Thunder Hill years ago in a 996 GT2, so Porsche Silver era, and the professional driver we brought, Johannes Van Orbeck, was seeing 135 miles an hour when he was shutting down for turn 1. I drive a desk, so I was shutting down at $130. I'm in a convertible, Turbo S, 901.2, and I'm shutting down at 146. And as we're going around, I noticed that, my air-conditioned seat isn't working anymore. And I'm like, I know, I turned that on. I was loving those 3 little blue dots the whole time. And I thought, well, how spoiled are we? How spoiled are we that, you're bummed about your air-conditioned seat? And right then, another colleague, Michael Harley, gets on and says, my air conditioning quit. And so my car had shut down my seats. It decided I need that. His car shut it all down to preserve itself. So that was an extreme test. I went on to drive that same turbo, or one of the turbos that was there that day, for another week or two. Another 2,500 miles, same tires that came off the track on. So that's something else that separates Porsche, in my opinion. We focus on 000, but we drive other things too. The cars work, and they work in all sorts of conditions. And if that's the goal, it's very hard to beat a turbo, which I think brings us to our last car. You want to speak to that?
So this is the 992 generation Turbo S, which is still the turbo of today. You can still go into a dealer and buy this car. And this is just an evolution of the 991.2, more power, more technology, new interior, but it's, again, the same tub. If you look at the greenhouse, it's the same greenhouse. This particular one is a very special one, and I'll let Pete speak to that.
I worry about time. Are you guys okay? Are we boring you to death here? I hope it's all right.
Why we're here.
This is the second car. This particular one is what's called the 000 Commission. This is the first one. They've been arriving in Canada. We're starting to see photos of cars coming to the U.S. They can be ordered elsewhere, much like the cars here. That's the first time we edited a car with Porsche exclusive manufacturer. Those cars came out of a photo shoot with that car. That car was not supposed to be a race car. It was just supposed to be an art car. And then very Chen, someone told a joke, and it turned into a race program, and it won. But on the trip out to photograph that car, we sent it to a friend in Germany and said, hey, we like these spiders. We were driving a gentian blue one. He said, hey, we like these spiders, but could your department get rid of all this Alcantara, put leather in here? And he writes back and he says, text, middle of Utah, middle of COVID, or beginning of COVID, scariest moments of COVID. He writes back and he says, we got in that spider, it was like us against the world. And Larry and Lewis, who was also here somewhere, they were in a GT4, and out there in the middle of Utah, I didn't realize how much I needed to be. There's Larry, there's Lewis. So the four of us, we called them. We'll tell some more stories about that later, but we went out against the world, and then we did this photo shoot, and then it turned into a race program. And in the meantime, the text I sent to Germany came back and said, yeah, would you like to do, like, we can get rid of the leather, or we can get rid of the Alcantara, but would you like to do a 000 kind of edition or something? I was, what? And I was looking at this, because when we started, we just wanted to make a good magazine. That was it. We grew up reading magazines. We care about magazines. We find it a different discipline, away from screens, away from hyperlinks, and permanence. We didn't plan on editing the car. And those resulted, there's 5 of them here tonight. There's 39 of those in the world. We didn't know if that would ever happen again, and then it did. And this car celebrates our this car represents our second race car. That was our first race car at Pikes Peak. We went back to Pikes Peak in 2022 with a 992 Turbo S. And internally, we almost called it Project 959, but we didn't want to tip our hand. And our only goal was to get under 10 minutes at Pikes Peak with a production car. To give you an idea how hard that is, the first car ever to go under, took them years and years, was a 910 horsepower Suzuki prototype, Monster Jajima. And so the idea of getting a 911 street car under 10 minutes was wild, but the technology in the 992 is really quite remarkable. And there was something new that kind of comes from that Turbo S over there, a lightweight package that was available for the 992. And that was Frank Wolitzer and some others saying, hey, everybody's focused on the GT3, but the Turbo is a serious performance car too. Maybe some people would like something more serious from the Turbo. So we thought, what if we go back? This car did a 936.559. It had 3 weeks of we might, battery. I think this is like the hook coming in. So we thought, could it be done with a street car? Could we get anywhere under 10 minutes? And what we didn't plan on was the weather. And the turbo came in force, and all of the systems, the intelligent OLED drive, all the evolution that you see here, one of these finished second overall at Pikes Peak, beating every race car on the hill except one. And the only car that beat it by a large margin, but it was a full prototype with massive downforce and much less weight. And even we couldn't race the car almost second overall. And then we went back to more favorable, which is the and the car in 953. And so this car and it's available on any
This is wild right here. 959s. So sick. One's better than one. So sick, man.
Super high speed. I thought they were amazing. Oh, super crazy. Aluminum?
That's not our exhaust.
I mean, it's like you're crazy or what? It's like. Yeah, you're right. In the United States. You're right. In the United States, Michael Bloomberg runs. Oh no.
The prototype is. You can see the waves in it.
There's different reasons why people call it 934. I'd say it's very clear the front of the 934. And if you look at 934, if you drew up the regular 934 and 930, it's remarkable how close they are. And minimum weight requirements didn't dictate, but Porsche, they had to get weight, and so they just left power windows in the car. So the early 934s got power windows pretty wide, and other heavier equipment. And they actually put a bigger fuel tank in it just to get up to minimum weight. So these cars are remarkable to have tonight. And then I think from the standpoint of through the show, it's really worth heading up. There's some, besides the 000 package spiders and the 2022 Pikes Peak car, which of course is 911 turbo based. I was at 2020 Pikes Peak GT2 RS. This is turbo based. Not so distant to this in some ways. But as you go up, there's another 935, a 993 GT2 Club Sport that's worthwhile. Those two cars, beginning and end, the very cool twin turbocharging. And then further up, 959 prototype, not to be missed, extremely lightweight. That's prototype number F9. Was on the cover of which issue? Yeah, it's starting to blur. There are 30 some odd issues and it's starting to blur. Like a recent issue, 26-ish, I'm gonna guess. And then also a 959 SC, which is kind of a modern recommissioning of a 959. And then there's a roof CTR Yellowbird. Find me if you want Yellowbird stories. It's actually, this one is a CTR, but it's the first customer car. It's very standard. And then roofs modern CTR also with it. This is worthwhile to go and see. And then there's a Keen Project 930.
Green is probably my favorite.
The anthracite car over there, it takes it off-road. It's built out to go off-roading. So it's, and then finally, we're very thankful, I don't know where Seamus is at, but there he is. So Singer
Let's see if the light works on this.
a modern, a Turbo Classic Services car in Ruby Star. Yes, and so that also is worthwhile. But the people, you know, you got Seamus, Kevin, I'm outing you for the 930. You could mention the Safari car. You know, there's people here to talk to. With every one of these cars, there's a story. And then there's all the stories up the driveway. Our readers have brought their turbos. So we want to say thank you to all of you for coming. And we're going to have a talk at 7 p.m. for those interested.
That's a sick
Make sure to
triple gray. This is
and
Mario's.
also make sure to stop by the front
This
desk
is
as
a
you walk
gem
in.
that no one
There
really
are
knows
raffle
what's
tickets
going on.
available for tonight's raffle, which benefits 43 Institute. We're going to talk a little bit more about that
Larry
start
did do an
at the end.
interview
We'll
with
try to keep
Mario
that presentation
about his car.
shorter than this one.
Man, he's actually taking it up and using it.
To school when you guys. So thanks for hanging in.
So nasty. Triple gray. And there's way more to this story. We'll find out. What an event, man. What a dope event. It's like a kid in a candy store. His jaw dropping in odd everywhere. So sick. Oh, this is the Bad Boys cars. Let me go show you. It's the Bad Boys movies. The most recent one is on my left. Well, I guess you're left too because I'm recording. So straight from the movie. Bad Boys. Not a fan of the movie, but definitely a fan of the cars. So sick. I love black and gold. It just ties well together. Straight from the Bad Boys movie. I'm gonna end this live because we're about to head inside and we can't record or do anything in there. So I'll end this live here. Thanks for checking out. Not too many views, but I've never done lives before, so oh, man. How dope, man. So sick. Who's even on this live right now? I see 2 people active. Who's on here right now? Who's here? God damn. Such a dope event. Alright, so we're gonna head inside now, so I'll have to turn off the camera. But thanks for checking it out. So sick. Black and gold. Black and gold is such a combo. And when it's clean, oof. I'm not even gonna bother with the GoPro. It's too dark out here already.